Good to see you. Welcome to 2024, the first Sunday in 2024, and I'm excited. There's there's really no better place to kick off the new year or to start your plans than being together. The theme this year is the crown. That's what you see um, on the screen. And what we're going to do this year on Sunday mornings is we're going to journey through First and Second Timothy and Titus. And I am looking forward to that. It's going to be an encouraging, an encouraging and exciting and hopefully uh, motivating, motivating lessons as we look at these together. Our theme for the crown comes from Second Timothy, what Glenn just read for us in Second Timothy chapter 4. And it is one of my favorite passages, and perhaps one of the more familiar passages in Second Timothy, this crown of righteousness. The crown of righteousness. That's something that is promised to us. It's a promise. But inherent in the crown of righteousness is this idea that He can give us the crown because He's wearing the crown. So all of our Christian life, if you'll allow me, it is in hopes of attaining the crown. So last year we looked at the theme of being transformed, and we bounced around a lot, different ideas, but the transformation process is in hopes of getting the crown. So that's where we're headed. That's what we're looking at. And these letters that Paul writes, two to Timothy and one to Titus, he's writing to these young Christians. And as he writes to these young Christians, he instructs them how to live, how to evangelize, how to share the gospel, and that is going to look like. So that's where we're headed this year. That's what we're looking at today. And as I was this morning, actually, as I was going back through this particular lesson and looking at 2 Timothy chapter 4, 7, and 8, where our theme is coming from, I decided that we're going to break it up into two parts. And we're doing that because I feel like most of you would want to eat lunch at lunchtime, and you probably wouldn't want to sit here for 2 hours. My grandfather, who preached for roughly 60 plus years, he said, and you'll never forget it, the mind can take in only what the rear can endure. All right? So hopefully you'll be able to take in everything that we talk about. So having said that, come back tonight. Get the rest of it, because the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey says, is the best part of the story. That's the rest of the story. So come back tonight and get more encouragement. And it's always encouraging to come back and to be together again. But this morning, we're answering in verse 7 and verse 8, and we're going to come back later on in the year, and we're going to look at this exact same text in a different way. But as a way of introducing this text answers three questions, two of which we're going to answer, two we're answering this morning, one we're answering tonight. The ones that we're looking at this morning specifically, we're looking at verse 8. Tonight we'll look at verse 7, but look at verse 8. Here we see the what, okay? This is the what we can get. And obviously, we've already talked about it. That's our theme for the year, and it's the crown of righteousness, okay? But read it again. Henceforth, based on verse 7, henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. What will you get? If I remain faithful, if this transformation process of last year in my life takes place, what will I get? And the first part is the crown. You're going to obtain the crown. And when you think about the crown, maybe you think about a gold circle on somebody's head and is full of these beautiful gems. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what Paul had in mind as he was writing that. Perhaps in the back of his mind, that was part of it. But most of the time, or other times that you see this particular word, it's translated as prize or wreath. Perhaps, in at least this is my opinion, take it for what it is, 2 cents. My opinion is that Paul had in mind this, perhaps the Olympic Games or something like that, where as you competed, right? And that's what he's talking about. I have run the race. I have fought the good fight. Two of the earliest Olympic Games, boxing and running, that were ever there. I have obtained the crown, the prize, right? So if we think about the Christian life as Paul does, it is this gauntlet of a race. Perhaps we're thinking about a marathon, or for maybe the rest of us who the marathon's way out there. Maybe we're thinking about walking a 5K, right? Just 3 miles instead of 26. This is something that we strive for. It is a long distance, excruciating race from point A to point B. Point A is earth, point B is heaven, and we are on our way being transformed, you see, to the crown, to the wreath, to the prize. But what we have is not prize money at the end of a match, a boxing match. And it's not a wreath, right? Just twigs and leaves that are twisted together to form this perishable thing. But what we have is a crown. We've got this crown, and it's an imperishable crown. It's a crown that can only be given by God, and it's a crown that can never be taken away from us. It's a crown of, you see it, the crown of righteousness. And I am convinced that the only way that the crown, let's go back to the Olympics, right? Or a match of any sort. The only way that the prize can be awarded is because the one who has it has the authority to give it. You see what I'm saying? For instance, all right, you're the heavyweight champion of the world. They give you this belt, right? If you lose, guess what? You got to give that belt up. Or if you think about the Olympics, and these people are given it today, they're given not wreaths, they're given these gold medals or silver or bronze or first place loser medals, and what they have, the person that is giving them has been authorized to give them. You can't just go out and, like, hey, you did good job, man. Here's a medal. Here's a medal. It's not how it works. The one who gives the prize has the authority to give the prize. Now, what we're talking about, okay, what we're talking about is the crown of righteousness. So the one who gives out the crown of righteousness must himself be righteous. You follow me? He has to possess righteousness in order to hand out the crown of righteousness. You understand? And that's exciting for us. At least I hope so. Because in Romans chapter 5, if you turn over to Romans chapter 5, you're going to find in chapter 5, at least beginning in verse 12, the second half of Romans chapter 5, you're going to find this discussion. How Adam was unrighteous, how Adam was sinful, and Jesus Christ was righteous. Over and over and over again, you're going to find that Jesus described as righteous. He was righteous. Who can award this crown of righteousness? Well, none other than the one who is righteous. Or John in his epistle, 1 John chapter 2, he puts it this way. Verse 1, right? Following chapter 1, walk in the light as he is in the light. We have fellowship with one another. His blood cleanses us. Look at chapter 2 and verse 1. My little children, I am writing these things to you so that you may not sin. But if anyone does sin, we have an advocate. We've got someone standing beside us, alongside us, calling out to God. We have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ. Look at it. Jesus Christ, the righteous. Or maybe the translation that you're reading it translates it as Jesus Christ, the righteous one. Jesus Christ, the righteous. Because I'm telling you, there is none that is righteous aside from Jesus Christ. He is the one, as the Hebrew writer describes, he is the one that can bear with our weaknesses, bear with our horrible plights in life, because he himself went through life that way. He can bear with our sin, bear with our imperfections, because he went through it and was righteous. He was without sin. So we have this crown. We try our very best to strive for the crown, the imperishable crown, the crown of righteousness that Jesus can give us because he himself is the righteous one. And go back in verse 8 of 2 Timothy. And not only do we strive for the crown, and the crown of righteousness, but there's an exciting part that follows that. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, who has authority to do it, which the Lord, the righteous judge, that's interesting. We'll come back to that later on in the year, so you'll just have to keep coming back. Which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award, look at it, will award to me. You see that? What is he going to give? He's going to give, as Paul writes, he will award to me the crown of righteousness. Now, think about it. Jesus has a crown. As you think about this, and this is the second time that he said it, because the first time, henceforth there is laid up for me, and the second time, will award to me. 2 times. The concept is that there is a crown, right? Do you see the certainty of that statement? And when you think about the certainty of eternal life, obviously all of us are going to go somewhere. We're going to go to heaven or we're going to go to hell, depending on what we're doing. And we'll talk about that in just a few moments. But there is a certainty in Paul's salvation. Now, many people will, as they approach the end of life, and I understand it. I understand it completely. But as they approach the end of their life, they face this conundrum. Have I done enough? Have I lived the right way? Is Jesus really going to save me? Or perhaps even, does God actually exist? But there is confidence, right? And I am here to tell you that when you face the end of your days, you can have confidence in your salvation. There is laid up for me. He will award to me. But it also speaks to certainty that this is going to happen, that I can put all my faith in it. But it also speaks to the idea that He's made preparation. He's laid it up, right? That's what we do for retirement, right? We set a little bit aside so that when that time comes, we have laid aside enough, right? We've put away enough so that we can comfortably retire or whatever it is. There is laid up for me what God has done. He's prepared a place. In fact, right? David read in John chapter 13, but if you look at John chapter 14, right after that, right? The night of the crucifixion. In John chapter 14, if you look at the first 3 verses in John chapter 13, he tells his apostles, 11 at this point, I believe, I go to prepare, you see it? A place for you. If you believe in me, you believe in the Father. In my Father's house are many rooms, many mansions. Would I have told you if it were not true? If 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 it were not true, it is true. Isn't that encouraging? So it speaks to the idea that God's prepared, right? He's prepared for you, which is the personal aspect of it. God is prepared for you. What does that mean? I can't tell you. You're the only one that can determine between you and God. What does it mean that He is prepared for you? Is He prepared as you stand before the judgment seat of Christ? Is He prepared to say, enter into the joys of heaven, prepare before the foundation of the world? Or is He prepared to say, depart from me, I never knew you? I don't know. But He will say one of the two. He's going to say something. So when you read, I have kept the faith, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness. He will award it to me. Understand, Judgment Day is coming, which leads us to the when. You get the what, it's the crown of righteousness, and it's given for you. But look at the when. He will award it on that day. You see it? Again, we're coming back to this idea of certainty. But I want to bring out this is a different word than what he has done. And at the beginning of verse 8, laid up, right now he is going to award it. You see that? He is going to, the word literally, to give it back, or to refund, or to repay. It's this idea that you have done something and now I am going to give it to you. But I keep thinking about that, and I think about our relationship to God, and what have I possibly done to push God, or to receive anything back from God? Like I feel like in my life I've given him nothing but anger and misery. I've caused him nothing but grief. What could he possibly award? What could he possibly give back to me, or return to me? And the only thing that I can relate it to, and it's a poor relation, but the only thing that I've been able to come up to relate it to is a trust fund. Y'all have heard of a trust fund? You might be a trust fund or have a trust fund. But it's this one who is in charge, right? The trustee of the trust fund is in charge of this sum of money or amount of wealth or whatever it is, until a time comes, right? Maybe that child turns 18 or 21 or 30 or whatever it is. And when that child turns 18, 30 or whatever, the trustee will then allow that person to obtain that money. He will return it. He will give it back. Isn't that exciting? Not only salvation, but the idea that he's held on to it this long for us, until the time comes when we're ready for it. See, this life is about preparing us for the next life. When we turn 30 or 18 or whatever it is, and then he will return it. He will return it, give it back. He will render what is due us on that day. There is one day that Jesus will come back. There's one day. He's going to come back in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye. He's going to come back and he's going to call his saints. He's going to come back, and at that moment, with a loud trumpet blast, he will judge the world. It's going to happen. You can take it to the bank. Look at one passage with me in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. And I want to direct your attention to verse 10. And consider the seriousness of Paul's statement here. 2 Corinthians 5:10. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, whether good or evil. 3 times, according to my count, he calls out the singularity of the judgment. Each one, what he has done in the body. It is up to you Whether you stand before the judgment seat of Christ and Jesus will say to you, come into the joys prepared for you before the foundation of the world, come, come. Or he says, depart from me, I never knew you. Completely up to you. What it depends on is this: what you, what I have done in the body. Whether good or evil, we must all give an account for everything that we've done. What we strive for and what God is trying to prepare us for is the crown of righteousness. Are you prepared? Are you prepared to receive that crown, the crown of righteousness, the crown that comes from God? Are you ready for that? Or has He prepared another place? A place for those who have rejected Him. Is that place prepared for you? I hope not. With all of my heart, I hope not. But on the reverse side of that, the encouragement is that there is a crown of righteousness laid up for you if you are faithful to Him. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Have you committed your life to Him in baptism? Are you walking in the light with the righteous one? If not, I want to encourage you to come.